What's up, this is Chris with Cowdog. Today I'm going to show you how to make this round cafe table. So to get started, I'm just breaking down my lumber, in this case ash, down to rough size and then squaring off the edges and ends on the table saw. It's already planed S2S, surfaced on both faces, and I use the taper jig as a straight line rip jig, so I find having manageably sized pieces helps make this process a lot smoother. Now I'm just trying to arrange the boards in a pattern that appeases the eye, but is also resistant to cupping over time. I'm looking for the smiley face, frowny face on the end grain while also having good grain selection on the surface. I'm marking out a couple triangles for alignment and hoping I don't summon anything from another dimension, and then I'm marking the location for my dominoes in the glue up. Now I've said it before, but I'll say it again for those of you in the back who ain't been listening, you don't need a domino for my builds. A biscuit joiner or doweling jig for alignment purposes is just fine. However, with the domino, I like to use the tight setting for the tenon side and the wider mortise setting for the mortise side so that it allows me for some wiggle room during the glue up. Now this isn't a terribly stressful glue up, I just make sure to wipe off most of the squeeze out with a wet rag after everything is clamped and just try to work quickly. Now I'm waxing the bottom of my jack plane with some paraffin and going diagonally to hit any of the high spots and level everything out. I believe this is called traverse plane. Then a quick tune of the card scraper just to get everything sharp. Using the card scraper between a jack and a smoother helps me take out some of the harsh diagonal lines to allow my smoother to do its job a lot easier. It's a little bit unorthodox, a lot of people use the card scraper as a finishing tool. I do as well, but the results here really speak for themselves. Now looking at the bottom of the table, I'm screwing in this circle jig that is made from some 1/4 inch ply. I've got a straight upcut spiral bit in my plunge router, and I like to take 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 inch passes with the router each time. You can sort of tell by the general feel how it's going to behave, and if you're feeling a little too much resistance, just take a lighter pass. I also like to vacuum out all the chips between passes, and that makes everything go a lot smoother. And once you get through to the other side, you've got yourself a circle. For the base, I'm going to have to glue up stock for the entire pedestal since I don't have thick enough material to work with. This particular glue up here is for the pedestal post itself, and I'll trim everything to final size after the glue up. On this build, no scraps go to waste, and this curved offcut will be a support for the tabletop. Also a subtle reminder to help my channel out, do the whole like, comment, and subscribe thing. I really appreciate it. This material will be the base of the pedestal, and as stated earlier, I'm going to have to glue up stock to match the center post. Once again, breaking out the taper jig, however this time I'm actually using it for taper purposes. I like to use hand planes to shore everything up since I don't have those good flush trim bits for my router. Here I'm going from a number 8 jointer, then to a low angle jack, and then on to a number 4 smoother. I also find the shearing sound of the planes incredibly soothing. To add some extra detail, I'm going to use the tenon jig to bevel the toes of the pedestal base. Then I'm using a 1/2 inch round over bit to further add some more detail. That detail is going to be moved to the entirety of the base to lighten the overall look. Then I'm marking for dominoes, which is how everything is going to come together and attach to the central post. The tabletop supports are only getting one domino at the top for alignment, and then I'm going to primarily rely on the edge grain glue connection for the rest of the length from affixing it to the post. And more rounding over. After the dry fit, everything gets taken apart and sanded. I'm starting with the inside curves of the tabletop supports, and I'm doing that on the oscillating spindle sander. I like to take everything up to about 320 and then hand sand to 400 before gluing up. To aid in install alignment for the tabletop, I'm drilling a 5/8 mortise with a Forstner bit to accept a 1/2 inch dowel from the base into the center point. For most hole drilling, I prefer a brad point bit just because it helps prevent lateral slippage. You also get that same brad point on a Forstner bit as well. I'm also going to hit the whole underside of the table with a round over to lighten the look. Now, to be clear, this alignment mortise and tenon isn't for any strength at all, it's for pure alignment, and the oversized mortise allows for wood movement over time. I'm going to use wood buttons to mount the top to the base. I've got a much more detailed explanation on these in my dresser build, and that I've linked up in the top right corner. Now onto applying finish. I'm using the Maloof finish, but instead of equal parts poly, tung oil, and linseed oil with a splash of mineral spirits, I'm going to go a little bit heavier on the poly since the tabletop is going to see a lot of use and abuse. The entire piece is going to get about 5 coats over 3 days, and it won't be fully cured for almost a week. Once everything's cured, it'll get another wax coat, which is going to also include equal parts beeswax, tung oil, and linseed oil. And in all honesty, this blend really brings this tabletop to life. Just look at that grain pop. Then to mount the base to the tabletop, I'm going to use those wood buttons I made before and install those into some domino mortises I cut in the top supports. As you can see, there's a little bit of lateral play, and that's to account for wood movement. And then I'm done. This is a client commission and I'm really happy with how it turned out. The cathedral grain with the ash is really something spectacular to see in person. I'm such a big fan of these curved offcuts and the ability to make a single small table out of very limited stock, keeping the price point very affordable. As you can see also, puppy approved. Thanks for tuning in and see you next time here at Cowdog Craftworks. Alright guys, this month I am drinking Woodford Reserve, a classic Kentucky American bourbon. This bourbon in fact is aged in white oak barrels per law, charred white oak barrels in fact, with very strong notes of vanilla as well as black pepper. I like it not classically neat, but with a very small eyedropper's worth of water. And per usual, absolutely smooth and delicious. Thanks for watching, see you next time.